How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. I'm delighted to have you. We've got some breaking news. Israel has bombed Qatar, a precision strike on the Qatari capital. We'll get to that. But first, the other breaking news, which I will spend more time with later in the show, but I want you to know out of the gate, the jobs numbers have been revised downward, over 900,000. The left is attacking Donald Trump on this downward revision of the jobs. This is actually the Joe Biden jobs numbers, not the Donald Trump jobs numbers, and that is missing a lot of context in the news. Essentially, 911,000 jobs declined through March of this year. So a lot of those jobs down at the end of the fourth quarter of last year with Joe Biden as president, and then in the first quarter of this year, where you're still feeling the effects more of Joe Biden's policies than of Donald Trump's policies. The left is pouncing, saying, see, this means that Donald Trump's economy is bad. No, actually, it means that Joe Biden's economy was bad, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics yet again screwed up. I'll spend more time on this later. I do want you to know about it out of the gate. The other big story is that Israel appears to have taken out senior leadership from Hamas. The meme going around on social media right now is there's white smoke over Qatar, which means Hamas has a new leader. Which is to a degree true. So for those of you who don't understand, Hamas, the terrorist organization, has its headquarters in Qatar. All of its senior leaders live in Qatar. Qatar has become a safe haven for terrorists around the world, even as they spend lots of money inside the United States, lots of money trying to shape people's perception of Qatar. Qatar is actually a state that funds terrorism around the world. Now, you should note, there's a side note here. My buddy Wade pointed this out on social media. For all the people who were bellyaching about Donald Trump taking that 747 for Qatar that he'd be bought and paid for, I've got my own complaints that essentially the plane was paid for with Qatari blood money, and I don't think we should take it. But as I said at the time, anyone who thinks Donald Trump's going to be bought off by Qatar doesn't know Donald Trump. Wade pointed that out a little while ago on social media as well, that the president and the American government were given advance notice of the strike and did not object. Donald Trump not objecting. The man who got the 747 gifted from Qatar did not object. Can we please stop saying that Donald Trump is in the pocket of the Qataris? The left wants you to believe Donald Trump is in the pocket of everybody. He's not. This shows you several things. One, Israel is increasingly bold and willing to take the fight to others. Also, that Hamas bit off more than it can chew on October 7th. The people are out there just screaming about the injustice of all of this and how dare Israel do this. How dare they not? There are still hostages held in Gaza. Donald Trump told Hamas the other day if they did not release the hostages sooner rather than later, he would allow Israel off the chain. This is Israel off the chain. And they should be off the chain. There's a growing, and you see it in public opinion poll in this country, there's growing antagonism towards Israel. A lot of people want this over. There are a lot of Israelis who want this over. The way to end it is for Hamas to release the remaining hostages and the bodies of the hostages that have died in captivity that have not been released. Hamas has chosen not to do that. It is Hamas that started this. Israel intends to finish it. The same people who want you to believe that Donald Trump was going to be in the pocket of Qatar because they gave him an airplane are the people who want you to believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing what he's doing in order to avoid indictment and prosecution in Israel because he's been under investigation for corruption. It could actually be that the Israelis overwhelmingly support what's happened. It could actually be that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing what he thinks is right. And it could actually be that this is not Israel's fault. Israel is the only nation on planet Earth that is told it can't defend itself. It can't go after the bad guys. And if it does go after the bad guys, it's got to tie both hands behind its back and hop on one leg. That's the way the world expects Israel to fight. You know, they had 24 people at some international group claim that Israel's engaging in genocide. It turns out anybody could join the group, and the group actually didn't vote. Just a handful of them did, put it on the name, and said Israel's committing a genocide. It's amazing and remarkable to me how the national and the international press around the world is so willing and so easily takes talking points that are negative towards Israel. Take the story of the woman who died. She had cancer, and globally the press coverage was that Israel had killed her. Or the kid who had birth defects that looked malnourished but wasn't. He just had all sorts of terrible birth defects, and Israel was starving him to death. Again and again and again and again. The BBC, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, they're willing to be first, not accurate. They are willing to malign Israel with news stories, and then we're surprised when public opinion shifts against Israel because of a concerted PR effort through the American and international press to help Hamas against Israel. The anti-Semitism is woven within the pages of the New York Times and in the coverage at CNN. And suddenly there's news reporting that comes out that says, even Republicans are beginning to turn against Israel. The shift against Israel has been notable. Yes, because for months on end, you people in the press have been lying to the public about what Israel is doing, and the public doesn't realize they're being lied to. They think, oh, it's terrible. They're starving Gazans to death. We're a compassionate people. They're not starving Gazans to death. Hamas is starving Gazans to death. Israel is indiscriminately bombing. Israel's not indiscriminately bombing. They use precision strikes in Qatar today to make sure that there would not be additional casualties. In Gaza, they call people and tell them, we're going to bomb your neighborhood. You should get out. Do you know, so here's the thing. If the United States were going to do a military strike somewhere and called that neighborhood in advance and said, hello, this is the United States government. We're going to be dropping bombs in your neighborhood in 1 hour. Please evacuate the area. Every single one of you listening and the American press corps would attack the American government for the audacity of telling the bad guys that they're going for them. So guess what? We don't get all the bad guys. They fled the area. But when Israel does it, they're still attacked for genocide, despite calling in advance and saying, hello, we're coming to kill Abdul, your next door neighbor. Please leave the scene so you don't get killed too. Oh my God, it's genocide. No, it's killing Abdul, who killed a bunch of Jews. Israel attacking Hamas in Qatar, in Doha, the capital, is actually a pretty bold move. The Qatari government, of course, says it's cowardly. How is it cowardly? You flew jets across the Arabian Peninsula. You did a precision strike in Doha while you knew that the Hamas leadership was meeting together, much like you did with the Houthis. And the Qataris are saying this was cowardly. No, it was pretty awesome, frankly. It was pretty awesome. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Israel's Air Force carried out a strike on Hamas' senior political leadership in Doha, Qatar, Israeli officials said, expanding its fight against the militant group. The attack represents a sharp escalation of tactics against the group whose military leadership has been wiped out in Gaza by Israel and a potentially risky operation on the soil of a key U.S. partner in the region. Qatar, which condemned the attack, hosts America's most important air base in the region, as well as most of Hamas's political leadership. It's been a key mediator in the 2 years of talks to resolve the war in Gaza. Israel informed the United States the attack is coming, and the U.S. in turn notified Qatar. Interestingly enough, the strike was the latest in a year of brazen attacks that have been highlighted Israel's military and intelligence prowess, along with its appetite for using them. In a relatively short period, Israel has wiped out the leadership of Hamas, Lebanese militia Hezbollah, and Iran's nuclear program, destroyed much of Syria's military equipment, killed militant leaders and other enemies in Gaza, Tehran, Damascus, and Beirut, and simultaneously exploded pagers and walkie-talkies carried by thousands of Hezbollah rank and file. Israel's Air Force has demonstrated its ability to attack at great distances with repeated strikes on the Houthi militia in Yemen and hundreds of sorties over Iran, each more than 1,000 miles away. Tuesday's attack targeted Hamas leaders Khalil al-Hayya and Zahir Jabaran, one of the Israelis and Qatari officials said. Many of Hamas's top political leaders were gathered in a meeting at the time of the attack. It wasn't immediately clear whether anyone was killed in the attack or how it was carried out. Defense Minister Israel Katz earlier warned Hamas leaders abroad they would be annihilated if they did not lay down their arms. Now, the question is, did Qatar tip off Hamas in time for them to get out? It's a major question that needs to be asked. Did Qatar tip off Hamas? Because I wouldn't put it past them unless the United States slow-rolled their notice to the Qataris. And I wouldn't put that past the United States. Hopefully they got the bad guys and they did not escape. Qatar is not our friend. You know, we used to all get worked up about the Confucius Institutes. The Confucius Institutes are the Chinese institutes around the world that funded pro-Chinese communist propaganda in the guise of cooperation with American military institutes or American academic institutes. Qatar is doing the same thing now. You know, I turned down an ad deal a while back. It was a sizable ad deal. Qatari Airlines. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want Qatari money. You know, the Qatar is pouring money into left-wing and right-wing influencers. It's not just the left or the right. It's not ideologically aligned. They're spending money with the left and the right online. A lot of influencers getting money, a lot of media outlets getting money, a lot of academic institutions in the United States getting money from Qatar. They're trying to influence you and me through how they are covered, through doling out money to them. I wouldn't take the money. I would have loved to have flown first class to Dubai, taken my family to see where I grew up. It wasn't worth giving up my soul to terror masterminds, and that is what the Qatari government is. They are a bunch of people subsidizing terrorists around the world. And Israel has had enough. Be mindful of those on the right in particular who are attacking Israel and criticizing it. Are they getting money? Under the table or otherwise, are they getting money? Qatar has thrown a lot of money into the social media influencer game, into TV networks, into institutions on the left and the right that have foreign policy groups trying to shape views of foreign policy with their money. They're trying to buy people off on the left and the right. Be very careful. If you start hearing people raising all sorts of alarms about a very impressive Israeli attack that was very targeted to minimize fallout, you might need to ask whether or not the people got money. It's very funny. You got so many people on the left now and some on the right. To those of us who page Israel, they're suggesting we are bought and paid for by Israel. I haven't taken any money from any Israelis. I want you to know that. I just happen to know the difference between good and evil. In Israel, they're doing good. can we talk about quality for just a minute? Because I can tell you, as I'm updating some furniture in my house that's lasted a very long time, it pains me to see all the cheapy disposable furniture where you're buying cheap stuff that you replace more often. You're actually losing money. It's like people who go out and they buy very cheap sheets, but at the same time, there are people who think they've got to throw thousands of dollars at bed sheets. I actually know someone who spent $1,500 on sheets. My Bull and Branch sheets, they've lasted longer than that guy's sheets, and they're super soft now. They're not the highest thread count, no, but they're organic cotton, and they're long-lasting, and they get softer over time. Feel the difference an extraordinary night's sleep makes with Bull and Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bullandbranch.com/Eric. That's Bull and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/Eric, ERICK. Save 15%, unlock free shipping. Exclusions apply. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson. Delighted to have you with me. 877-973-7425 is the phone number should you wish to be on the program. Very happy to have you. We are getting continued reports out of Qatar about the damage inflicted by Israel. It does look like a loss of the senior leadership of Hamas. And also it looks like a complete annihilation of every one of the senior leaders of Hamas now who planned the October 7th attack. Pretty impressive. The conversations about the young lady from Ukraine murdered in Charlotte, North Carolina are very interesting because the American Press Corps has decided not to actually cover what happened, but to try to claim that Republicans are stirring racial animosity and trying to play the race card over what happened. The young lady was murdered by a man on the subway in Charlotte, North Carolina, not the subway, light rail. And that should be the story. And as I said the other day, the truth of the matter, whether you want to believe it or not, is that had he, the murderer, been white and she, the victim, black, it would be all over the news. Van Jones is going after Charlie Kirk on CNN. Let me play this.
Let me just say a couple of things. One is, what happened to that young woman was horrible. And it's everybody's nightmare. If you're in any public space, a subway, whatever, that something bad's going to happen to you or somebody you care about. So it does strike a chord. We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. Even when you had a white police officer murder a black man on live television, the whole world saw, there were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level.
Two things. One, I like Van Jones tremendously, but he's a very nice guy. But I should note that actually he may not have known it, but the evidence was that the murderer said that I got that white girl. And it does seem like he targeted her because she was white based on his own words. And also had a white police officer randomly killed a black woman riding on public transportation. There would be all sorts of changes to society. The difference, frankly, was who George Floyd was himself not a great guy. And that mitigated it. Now I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank, my bank. If you want a great bank account, go to oldglorybank.com/Eric, oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Old Glory Bank is a bank by conservatives for conservatives. I've got a checking account and a savings account with them. I've got the no-fee checking and savings accounts. You can get premium accounts with them, even checking accounts that bear interest. You can do mortgages. You can do car loans. You can do lines of credit. You can do CDs. They're a fully functioning bank, the fastest growing bank in the country right now. OldGloryBank.com. They really are my bank. They're really good people, started by conservatives for conservatives. They bought a bank in Oklahoma. They expanded its national charter. It can take accounts from all over the country, and they've been taking lots of accounts. They'd love to have yours. OldGloryBank.com/Eric. You can go sign up there. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. In business, they say you can have better, cheaper, or faster, but you can only pick two. What if you could have all three at the same time? That's exactly what Cohere, Thomson Reuters, and Specialized Bikes have since they've upgraded to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OCI is the blazing fast platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload in a high availability, consistently high performance environment and spend less than you would with other clouds. How's it faster? OCI's block storage gives you more operations per second. Cheaper? OCI costs up to 50% less for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Better? In test after test, OCI customers report lower latency and higher bandwidth versus other clouds. This is the cloud built for AI and for all your biggest workloads. Right now, with zero commitment, try OCI for free. Head to oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson. Greetings, conversationalists across America. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I want to talk frankly about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff with Donald Trump. It was always silly of Trump to say he didn't participate in writing that card. You know, and some of you who want to believe, you can believe that it was a fake signature. I saw that spin yesterday that his signature doesn't match the signature of Donald Trump as president. Look, well, no, but if you go back to that year and you pull up some things Donald Trump signed around that time, yeah, the signature was about the same, and who cares? And that is the larger point here. Who cares? Trump is going to get this. He's probably going to get beat down by a court for suing the Wall Street Journal over it because clearly the Wall Street Journal got advance notice. The Epstein state has released it. Here's my problem. I don't care about Donald Trump participating in this note for Jeffrey Epstein at that time when it was not commonly known at that time that Jeffrey Epstein was the monster that he was. Jeffrey Epstein was a well-off financier gadfly in New York City at the time, and all sorts of politicians and prominent people knew Jeffrey Epstein as he ingratiated himself to them, and none of them knew he was a monster. You know what I have a real problem with on the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is that a whole lot of people who cared about Jeffrey Epstein decided not to care about it the moment Donald Trump said there was no there, and a lot of people who didn't care about it at all the moment he said that there was no there. They're like, oh my God, he's probably involved. It's all political opportunism. CNN 3 months ago had people on telling all the reporters there's probably nothing there. Everybody thinks there's some sort of list, but that's a conspiracy. Even the lawyers involved say there's no list. There were certainly names compiled of potential people involved, but Jeffrey Epstein did not keep a blackmail list. And obviously, if Donald Trump were on there, it would have been leaked. They were like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. It would have been leaked by the Biden team if Donald Trump was on this list. And now suddenly, wall to wall, CNN wants to give coverage on Jeffrey Epstein and his potential ties to Donald Trump. You know what CNN's not covering? Do you have any idea what CNN is not covering in its obsession about Donald Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein that 3 months ago CNN said didn't matter and wasn't relevant? They're not covering the victims. There are names of accusers. We don't know them because the women have all been paid off by the accusers to keep their mouths shut. This is something some of you can't wrap your brains around. And I don't mean that negatively towards you. It's just none of you live a life like this. It's like Lisa Cook being able to get 2 mortgages within 2 weeks of each other, both claiming primary residence. You and I don't live in that world. We don't understand it. You and I do not understand that there are really, really, really rich, deviant people who can spend a lot of money doing very deviant things and then pay the people to shut up. A number of very prominent reporters, including for the Miami Herald and others, investigated Jeffrey Epstein for a very long time. And had you bothered to read any of their reporting, you would have known, as I did, there never was a list, a blackmail list from Jeffrey Epstein. That was always one of the wild internet rumors out there that he kept some sort of list of all the people. He didn't. He never did. And what the same reporters who investigated it said, and what the lawyers have said, is that many of the victims, some of whom spoke to Congress recently, they were paid lots and lots of money by their abusers, both to pay them and to keep them silent. And if you enter into an agreement with someone and they pay you $5 million that you can never, ever, never, ever, 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 never say anything about it, well, guess what? You can never, ever, ever, never say anything about it. And if you go to court and the court demands that you say something about it, well, you're in violation of your agreement. You got to pay that money back plus some. And if you're not willing to press charges, if you're not willing to say you're a victim, what can they do? If you're not a victim, you're not relevant to a trial. The only reason anybody cares about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff right now is because of Donald Trump. And that goes for Thomas Massie. Let's be clear here. Thomas Massie has now been challenged by Donald Trump. Thomas Massie is being primaried by Donald Trump and Donald Trump's team. Chris LaCivita, who ran the campaign for Donald Trump, is now working on the outside group to take out Thomas Massie. The only reason Thomas Massie is doing what he's doing is to inflict damage on Donald Trump. What about the victims? I will say this about Thomas Massie. If he wants to go to the floor of the House and read the names of the abusers, do it. Make it a bipartisan effort. You know, you've got Project Veritas or whatever, or James O'Keefe, one of them out there now saying that they got some guy in some undercover video said, oh, they're going to redact the Republicans. We'll never know the Republicans. You get the Democrats on the floor of the House of Representatives, I guarantee you they will list the names of any Republicans, including Donald Trump. But you're not going to hear about Donald Trump because what's going on with Donald Trump is that the people on the left who for years and years and years and years and years dismissed anything about Jeffrey Epstein suddenly want to claim that Donald Trump raped young women. That's actually the claim online, is that we have elected Donald Trump who raped a lot of young women. No, he did not. It is a slander against the President of the United States, and you people know it, and you are using and abusing the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and cheapening the whole thing in the same way the abusers did, just so you can smear Donald Trump. It is an insult to the actual victims for you to go out and say that Donald Trump abused these young women, because there are names of the abusers and Donald Trump is not one of them. And yes, we would know, because you know and I know that if they had credible proof of it, it would have leaked long ago to try to stop Donald Trump from getting reelected president of the United States. He did nothing wrong. He is innocent of it. His ties in that book were common with a bunch of other people at the time that Jeffrey Epstein was a social gadfly in New York City. I interviewed a girl a couple of years ago who was a victim of human trafficking. You know who trafficked her? Her parents. Her parents. She went to school. She was a straight A student. She was on the softball team. And at night, she was tied up and rented out by her dad. And she had to keep her grades up so that nobody would suspect anything. And nobody suspected anything until late in her high school career. People started asking questions about some behavior and some harm. And they realized she was being trafficked by her parents, who had 2 kids. And the one kid they loved, and they used her as a sign of, clearly, I mean, there's nothing wrong with our family. Look at this other kid. It's just she's got problems. It was horrific. Absolutely horrific what she went through. Her parents are in prison now. She was a real victim. There are real victims who were abused and mistreated. And you're not talking about them. One, we don't know many of their names. But two, a media that never gave a damn about the victims still doesn't. They only care about slandering Donald Trump, who there's no evidence, never has been any evidence that Donald Trump did anything wrong. And I just find it revolting. It turns my stomach that people keep wanting to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, and very few people really care about the actual victims. It's salacious. It's like watching a car wreck. It's like watching a train wreck. People just want to watch it play out. You're not interested in the names of the victims and what happened to them. You just want the names. Surely there are some rich men out there. I want to know, was Bill Clinton involved? Was Donald Trump involved? Was Bill Gates involved? All the names that have surfaced in the past. Salacious gossip. That's what it is for almost every single person, is they just want the salacious gossip. They don't really care. And part of the problem here is people are playing with fire. You know, Bill Gates' name has come up in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. We don't know. We have no idea whether he was untoward with anyone or not. But people just want to know, what did Bill Gates do? What was his ties to this? It was probably nothing. And so you trot these names out, and you have people who are maligned and stigmatized for the rest of their lives because their names came up and they did nothing wrong. Think about all the jokes about, what's his name? Wheelie, Stephen Hawking, and his time on Epstein Island. I have no idea. I got nothing for you. Lots of speculation, lots of memes, lots of jokes. Think about all the people whose names have come out who are innocent, but now they're the butt of jokes. So if you go to the floor of the House of Representatives and you start listing the names of people, you better be sure, because the reason they're doing it on the floor of the House of Representatives is because if you say anything on the floor of the House of Representatives as a member of Congress, you are protected from lawsuit. You can come out and lie about your next door neighbor. You can say, my neighbor Bob is a child molester who at night rapes the goats in his backyard, and he's abusive to his wife, and I think he buried his grandmother under the rose bush in the backyard, and there's nothing your neighbor Bob can do about it because you're a member of Congress. That's why Nancy Mace went to the floor of the House before she announced her gubernatorial bid, and she attacked all those men and claimed she was a victim and they had sexually abused her and on and on. And you notice she won't say a damn thing about it off the floor of the House of Representatives. They tried to sue her and got the case thrown out because she used the speech and debate clause to say a lot of things that might not be true, so she can be protected against them by people trying to sue her and defend their names. She smeared these people and they're left with no defense. So if you go to the floor of the House and you list the names of the abusers of these young women, you better be telling the truth. You better get the names from the victims. And also, I think the environment exists at this moment in this country, so if those young women do come forward and say the names of their abusers, I dare the abusers to sue them, because I don't think it goes well for them. I think here on the tail end of the Me Too movement, I think if these women are willing to come forward and say they were abused, and here's who abused me, and here's how they abused me, I have a hard time believing the men who paid the money to keep them quiet are going to be able to successfully sue them. But this should not be about Donald Trump. And it actually is a very damning indictment on the left and the press in America, who cared nothing about this, who still cared nothing about this, but are using this as a way to smear the president of the United States. They're using real victims and their trauma to lie about the president of the United States. There are real victims. There is real trauma. And the quest to watch the train wreck and get the juicy gossip should not overshadow that there are a lot of broken lives. There was never a blackmail list from Jeffrey Epstein. There never was. The victims of lawyers have said as much. The reporters have said as much. But there are victims, and those victims have names. And it wasn't all Jeffrey Epstein. It was other people, too. I haven't cared much about this story because there's been too much conspiracy theorizing about it. But what offends me greatly is the American press corps hasn't cared much about it either until they thought they could smear Donald Trump. CNN has gone wall to wall with the Epstein stuff now. They never cared about it. They only care about it now because Trump's name has come up, and he had nothing to do with it. They've never been interested in the victims. If you're going to care about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, spend less time focusing on the abusers and more time focusing on the women whose lives were destroyed by the monster and those he subsidized and allowed access to them. And we should encourage Thomas Massey, if you want to keep this going, if you want to drag it out, if you really do care about it, go to the floor of the House and read the names. Surely the victims have given you the names of the monsters, so tell us who they are. Hi there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, a whole lot more. Just as a reminder, yesterday I sent out an email to those on the action items list and just said, it's like $35,000 a year to maintain the program we use to be able to reach out to members of Congress and state legislators. And we don't have that right now. We brought on some new people to grow the show. We got other priorities. I don't use it enough to justify it. So we're going to start using my daily show notes as the activism list. So if you haven't subscribed to the show notes, you should. If you want in on the action items, all you have to do is text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. The very first link is the show notes email. You can subscribe. There is a free option. There's a paid option. And you'll be able to take advantage of the action items, even as a free subscriber to it. Now, I want you to know how much I love you guys, because I do. I love you all. I had a great time last night with a group of people. Scott Jennings was actually the speaker. I was asked to introduce Scott Jennings from CNN. He's very kind. He referred to me as the true heir to Rush Limbaugh. It was very, very kind of him. And I loved hanging out with listeners last night. I love all of you, and I am missing Apple's big announcement and all their new goodies. I'm missing it. And then I got to take my kid to the Braves-Cubs game. Come on, Braves, win tonight against the Cubs, even though I love the Cubbies. So I'm going to miss completely the big announcements. I'm going to have Fisher texting me in real time what it all is. And I may check in on it during commercial breaks and stuff. You never know. So in any event, let me tell you about Americans for Prosperity. They are asking you to take a step for freedom in your community. If 250,000 of us just take one step for freedom, we will have taken 250,000 steps for freedom in time for our 250th birthday as a country. What you can do if you want to be a part of it is go to afpvolunteer.com. afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity today. Sign up with them. Get involved. Take a step for freedom in your community and advance the vision of the founders in time for the 250th birthday of this country. This is an all-hands-on-deck event, folks. They want everybody in every community everywhere taking a step forward for freedom to recommit ourselves to the vision of the founders. Go to afpvolunteer.com. That's afpvolunteer.com. When we come back, there is incredible data out from NBC News on the differences of Gen Z, younger voters, the Harris voters versus the Trump voters. Who is the most family-friendly? That might actually surprise you among all the data.